bad throat. You're a big singing star now, remember? This California dew is just a little heavier than usual tonight.
Really? From where I stand, the sun is shining all over the place. I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above. The sun's in my heart and I'm ready for love. Let the stormy clouds chase everyone from the place. Come on with the rain, I've a smile on my face. I walk down the lane with a happy refrain, just singing, singing in the rain, dancing in the rain. I'm happy again. I'm singing and dancing in the rain. And singing in the rain.
Just got a text from our golf superintendent, JB. He's got 5¼ inches in the last 4 days. He's crying in the rain, which would be the Everly Brothers, but that's another show. Welcome, everybody. A shout out to our mayor, Becky Tooley. I see you up there, Becky. Hi. Would you like to unmute? There you go.
Yeah. How's everything with you? saw you yesterday, so that was good news for a while to hold off the
Right.
solid,
And
waste
stay on-
management for a while.
Becky, stay on because Karen and I will talk about what we did yesterday to everybody a little bit later in the show.
Sounds good.
So stay with us. I just put in the chat okay, we're going to have a contest at the end of the show. We're going to have King Arthur, the DJ, on, who's familiar with Winmore and all of our events we have here. So if you go to these Winmore events over 30 years like me, you know the top songs we play at all these events. So I put in my top 5 that I expect to hear when I go to a Winmore event. So for the rest of you residents or anyone who's been a guest to any of our shows, thank you. So if you've been to the show, who's talking? Jakia, how do you do that voice? So anyway, the bottom line is, as the show goes on, take some time and put 5 songs that you think that you expect to hear at Winmore events. And I started it off, and then when King Arthur comes on at the end, we'll ask him his top 5 and his thoughts on our suggestions or comments. Okay? We're going to start off today with Geraldine. Geraldine, when is your truck coming to Winmore? Your van.
Well, I don't want to make you jealous. I was not Gene Kelly yesterday. I wasn't singing in the rain, but I was out in the rain at B'nai B'rith in Deerfield, one of the first in-person events I've done since the whole COVID lockdown and restrictions on senior centers. And it was a great success. It was really very rewarding to be there, to see our seniors out there so happy to be back in regular time where they could be with their friends and other members of the community. And we had a really nice event and got a lot of good information out there. And I am waiting. You're asking me, Bruce. I'm asking you. Kia, should I be calling you, or are you going to tell me when you're ready for phase G? What's happening here?
Phase G. For G for Geraldine. Jakia, we're not going to commit right now, but I would think within a month.
All right. I've heard that before, Bruce.
I know. We're good at that.
Yeah, that's
We'll take it under consideration.
I thank you for that. Thank you.
That's the first thing they teach you on your first day here at Winmore. We'll take it under consideration.
Take it under consideration. We'll have a conversation about it. Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
I hope it's soon. Jakia is very tough.
Before I turn it over to my colleague, Susan, you had a question?
Oh, yes, Susan. Now's your chance, Susan. Go ahead. You got to unmute. You got to unmute, Susan. There you go.
I'm okay. Thank you.
Did Stan answer it, or Gene Kelly took care of it?
I wanted to know if Gene Kelly had a totes umbrella. That's the thing I want to know.
Okay.
I think Pavarotti's going to be in the next Singing in the Rain.
There
movie,
you
so.
go.
Right.
Well, I think you're all going to enjoy who I have with me today. My colleague, Paul Yoon, is an attorney in our family unit. He deals specifically with victims' rights. I'm not going to spend the time introducing him. I'm going to let him give you a little background on himself. He's got a PowerPoint he's going to share with you. I think it's valuable for all of you. You've asked a lot of questions that I think it will answer, and it might even bring things to mind that you weren't aware of. So without further ado, Paul, go ahead and take it over.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Yoon, and I am a staff attorney here at Coast to Coast Legal Aid, and my special unit deals with victims' rights. I personally, as the staff attorney, represent victims of domestic violence in criminal court and advocate and fight for their rights in a criminal proceeding. I also can represent senior citizens who are victims of any crime. It doesn't have to be domestic violence, of any crime. And I represent their rights. These rights that I'm going to explain to you are applicable to any citizen of the state of Florida if they are a victim of crime. Just a brief little background about myself. I've been with Coast to Coast Legal Aid of South Florida since September of 2019, so I'm relatively new to South Florida. I feel like I'm very new because a year had just passed by because of the COVID situation where a lot of us were not able to go out and experience our surroundings. And I felt like that year we were kind of robbed of that year. So I still feel very new down here to South Florida. Previously, I worked as a defense attorney for several different public defender offices in Florida, and I started in Washington, D.C. So I've pretty much been in the criminal justice system, in the criminal field in my entire legal career since I graduated law school. So I'm not tech savvy at all. I'm gonna try my best to share my screen to do the PowerPoint presentation. So give me just a moment. Do I need to ask the host to give me permission to share, or can I just do it on my own?
You should be able to do it on your own.
Okay, so let me see if I can figure this out. And as Geraldine mentioned, any questions along the way or at the end of the presentation, I'd be more than happy to spend some time and answer any questions that you may have regarding the material that I'm about to present. So let's see if I can do this here. Bear with me, everyone.
Last time, Kevin, you tried one of these, and you know, our Wi-Fi wasn't that strong that day. We didn't do very good. We'll have a makeup for that.
Are you able to see this screen, everyone? Yes or no?
Not yet.
Make sure you press that, after you press the green share screen button, make sure you press the blue share button right after that.
Let's try this here. What happened? Because I want to try to share the full screen as opposed to just this. Can y'all see the?
Yeah, we're up.
Right now?
Oh, we're good.
Okay, let's see if I can transition it to this. How about that? Everybody can see it?
You're good at this, yeah.
Okay, it's my first time, thank you. Okay, so once again, this is kind of the title of the presentation, Victims' Rights Enforcement, a New Partnership. This is a relatively new program here in Florida. We are the only legal aid organization in the state of Florida that has this program for victims' rights. Just a brief introduction. So I work with two other colleagues. I specifically am with Coast Legal Aid of South Florida. My colleagues, Ms. Aaron and Ms. Roll, are with Legal Aid Services of Broward County. As I mentioned a few moments ago, I represent specifically victims of domestic violence in criminal court and senior citizens of any crime. Ms. Aaron and Ms. Roll with Legal Aid of Broward County, they represent victims of any other crimes, whether it's burglaries, theft, accidents, things of that nature. If you're a victim of crime that's outside of domestic violence, those are the cases that they handle. So I'm not going to read through each of this here, but just briefly some acknowledgments of how we got started. NCVLI, the National Crime Victims Law Institute, they are located in the West Coast in Portland, Oregon. Our office had applied for a grant to represent victims of crime in the state of Florida, and we were given that grant. And I guess the boss, the boss office is the Office of for Victims of Crime. So that's where the funding comes from. Okay, so once again, briefly, in 2018, the National Crime Victims Law Institute launched the National Victims' Rights Enforcement Project. It's called RISE. That's what our project is called here down in our office. It's Rights and Systems Enforced. After receiving a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice Office for Victims of Crime, Legal Aid is one of the 6 sub-grant recipients of this project. We are one of 6 throughout the whole country. I believe Washington, D.C., Chicago, Michigan, Arizona, California, and Portland are the other offices that do this specific victims' right enforcement under the law. We originally had 4 attorneys. We have 3 right now. We also have a staff. We had a social worker position. We have legal assistants. So we are a tight-knit family in terms of representing the victims throughout the county. This is, I put this in bold because this is very important. Our representation is at no cost to the victims whatsoever. There's never a bill or an invoice for anything. I always joke with my clients and say, even if you win the lottery, you can't even give me any money. I can't accept it. So we are a free legal service for victims of crime here in Broward County. And I should say, specifically for Broward County, I am unable to represent victims of crimes outside of our county lines because that's what our funding is provided for. Okay, so let's get into some definitions here of what this all means for a victim. This is from the Florida Constitution. So I'll get into this specifically, but this law, these victims' rights laws are now codified in the Florida Constitution, Section 16. Section 16 defines a victim as a person who suffers direct or threatened physical, psychological, or financial harm as a result of a commission or an attempted commission of a crime or delinquent act, or against whom the crime or delinquent act is committed. The term victim includes the victim's lawful representative, a parent or guardian of a minor, or the next of kin of a homicide. I have each one of those victims as part of my representation. So even next of kin are considered victims of crime. Okay, so this is all under Marsy's Law. There was a movement that started throughout all 50 states for victims' rights laws. Now, where does Marsy's Law come from? And here's a brief explanation here. So in Florida, our Marsy's Law, we're going to use it interchangeably as victims' rights law, was codified because some of you may remember this. In 2018, there was a constitutional amendment as part of the election, and it passed with 60% or more of the votes to enact the Marsy's Law of Rights, the victims' law of rights. And it was eventually codified on January 8th, I believe, of 2019. So here's the background of it. Marsy's Law is named after Marcy Nicholas of California, who was stalked and killed by her ex-boyfriend back in 1983. 1 week after her death, Marcy's mother and brother, Henry T. Nicholas, walked into a grocery store where they were confronted by the accused murderer. The family, who had just come from a visit to Marcy's grave, was unaware that the accused had been released on bail. Marcy's mother was not informed because the courts and law enforcement, though well-meaning, had no obligation. I want to put that word legal obligation to keep the family informed of the defendant's status. In an effort to honor his sister, her brother formed Marsy's Law for All in 2009 to give victims and their families constitutional protections and equal rights under the law. Marsy's Law went into effect in Florida, as I mentioned earlier, on January 8th of 2019. Okay, so what rights do crime victims have in Florida? There are a lot, but I'm going to point out some specific ones that are more applicable than others here. Okay, so kind of two stages of rights here. The first one is every victim is entitled to the following rights beginning at the time of his or her victimization. The key language there is that we do not need to wait for law enforcement to get involved or for charges to be filed. These rights attach to a victim the moment they are victimized, whether it's reported or not. So that's a key distinction. Florida is very different from other states, where some other states do require a case to be opened by the prosecutor's office for these rights to attach. Not in Florida. If something happened to you and you believe you're a victim of crime, some of these apply to you. So what are they? The right to due process and to be treated with fairness and respect for the victim's dignity. That's through the whole process, beginning with reporting the crime and until the resolution of the case. Right to be free from any intimidation, harassment, and abuse. That's specifically, that's for victims. It's very applicable in my courtroom with domestic violence, because defendants will try to intimidate and harass and coerce the victim, the alleged victim, I'm sorry, to drop the case, to not participate in the criminal matter against the defendant. Right to be reasonably protected from the accused and anyone acting on behalf of the accused. Some of the defendants think they're smarter than everybody else, and they'll send a family member or friend to intimidate or harass a victim. Not anymore. The victim has a right to be free, to be protected from that. Right to have the safety and welfare of the victim and the victim's family considered when setting bail. This is specifically kind of the situation where the law came from, where the movement came from. The family's in a grocery store. No one told them about the accused being released from jail. So now they have a right to know what's going on. And the Broward County Sheriff's Office has provided a very good system. It's called a VINE system, where the alleged victim can register and be informed of what's going on with the case. Right to prevent disclosure of information that could be used to locate the victim or the victim's family. This is also very important because victims, especially when domestic violence situations, they do try to leave the relationship and relocate to an area or residence where the accused will not know for protection purposes. However, court filings in criminal cases are public record. A lot of the court filings are, and they do include names, address, and things of that nature. Well, part of my job is to file motions and requests to prevent the disclosure of that information of my clients. Very important there. So those attached, and those are rights that the victim is entitled to. These are upon request. Right to timely notice and to be present at and to be heard at all public proceedings involving the criminal conduct. In other words, nobody can tell the victim that they can't be in court for the case, nor can they tell them, even if you are here, you cannot speak on the case. They have that right upon request. Right to confer with the prosecutor regarding pleas, sentencing, and the disposition of the case. The prosecutor, I always explain to my clients, the state attorney or the prosecutor, some people call them the DA, district attorney, they represent the state of Florida because the defendant, the accused, broke the laws of Florida. They did not break the laws of the victim, so to speak. So the Florida state attorney's obligation is to represent the state of Florida. They're the moving party against the defendant. Victims are in between the two parties, two parties being the state attorney and the defense attorney. They are the parties of record. And they kind of get lost in the shuffle, believe it or not. When I was a criminal defense attorney, part of our strategy was to kind of let the case continue drag on because the victim will get disinterested and they'll get lost in the shuffle. Not anymore. With these rights now, the victim has the right to confer with the prosecutor so he or she does not get lost in the shuffle. Right to be informed at every stage of the criminal case, including conviction, sentence, release, clemency, expungement procedures. I represent my clients from the moment they call and I accept their case until the end of the case, the resolution. Those resolutions may even include something called probation or being monitored by this Department of Corrections or the county. I stay on just in case there are any violations that implicate or that have anything to do with my client. So it's until the very end of the criminal matter. Right to proceedings free from unreasonable delay. We've been lucky even through this COVID situation where the Broward County Courthouse has been closed. We haven't had any cases where there's been any undue or unreasonable delay. And this is also very important, right to full and timely restitution. Not easy to talk about, but sometimes there are injuries. These injuries, when there is some kind of incident, lead a victim to have to go to the hospital. If there's any medical bills, if there's any damage to property, things of that nature, well, they have a right to full and timely restitution for the losses from out of their pocket. And that will go towards the defendant to be responsible for those financial losses. Okay, why should crime victims have an attorney? Kind of touched on this a little bit. Like I said, when I was a criminal defense attorney, our job was to try to make the victim not relevant, believe it or not. It's a strategy. I know it sounds callous and cold, but that's how it works in the criminal justice system. Well, what I explain to my clients these days is that can't happen anymore, especially when you have an attorney who represents you. I have filed notice of appearances, and that tells the prosecutor and the defense attorney, the victim is represented. Don't you dare try to overlook us anymore. And just as importantly, the judge recognizes that the alleged victim has an attorney. That's one reason why it's important to have an attorney in these situations. Moreover, another thing I tell my clients in my initial consultation is, look, you have all these rights, but you don't know what to do with them. It's like having a bunch of tools that you got to build a house with, but you don't have a blueprint to build a house, even though you have these great tools. That's where I come into play. Many victims don't even know about these rights, not to mention how to request or enforce them during a criminal proceeding. I, as an attorney with my experience and expertise, can advocate and fight for these rights for my clients, especially if they're infringed upon. So that's kind of the gist of, obviously it's kind of, it speaks for itself as to why a victim may want an attorney to represent them in a criminal legal proceeding. Okay, so like I mentioned, we have social workers too, because there's a lot of strings attached with these crime victims. There's children involved, there's assets involved, all kinds of things. Mental health, psychological, physical. Well, our program provides a holistic approach and offers a trained, trauma-informed social worker to assist our crime victims. We've helped victims find employment, find housing, get child care, outright financial assistance. And we try to do that in such a way where they don't have to necessarily pay us back at all. We work with the state attorney's office because there's something called a victim compensation bureau where they will provide financial assistance for relocation or any other financial things that are lacking for a victim. And our social worker is a huge part of trying to get our victims back on their feet. As I mentioned, I work in domestic violence, and unfortunately, the majority of my clients are women. And what an abuser does is during their relationship, they systematically cut off financial reliance, family members, friends. They keep these victims in solitude. That's why having a social worker and working with the state's victim compensation bureau is critical to help these victims get back on their feet, especially if they have children. So a big part of our program here in victim rights. Okay, if you're curious or if you're bored, there is a website here that you can visit to get any more additional information. This is the national website, so it's not going to be Florida specific, but there are tabs there for Florida specific laws that if you are interested into looking into. So how can you help? Well, obviously, word of mouth is huge for us. During this COVID lockdown, there was obviously an uptick in domestic violence crimes. There just was, because everybody's quarantined and we're home. Law enforcement was difficult to respond at times. So word of mouth, letting people know of our program, letting them know that, hey, there's people out there that can help you if you don't know what to do and who to talk to. A lot of my clients tell me, I have so many questions, but I have no one to ask these questions to. And I always tell them that's what I'm here for. That's literally part of my job, to help explain all of this and guide you through the case in the system. We do have flyers. Once we start getting out to doing some public outreaches, we'll hand those out as well. But like I said, Coast to Coast Legal Aid, if they just contact us and let us know that they're looking for any victim rights consultation, they'll get to me within minutes. I answer my phone every time I can if I get a call. And this was at the beginning, once again, some contact information. If this is my direct office line and my work email, same, this is a social worker, and as well as my two other colleagues who represent victims of crime with legal aid of Broward County. So those are my slides. And thank you so much.
Did you put up Jennifer Lopez's phone number?
Jennifer Lopez. Let me see.
That was one. That was Joe. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I should have said this. Miss Lopez, unfortunately, we are very heartbroken, very recently has left our office. So I need to change that part of the slide there. It was somewhat abrupt, and she had to unfortunately leave our office briefly for that social work position. So that may not be the best number right now to contact. If there are any issues regarding social work or for victims, they can just outright contact me, because we have other resources as well.
Okay, Henry, get ready, Henry. Paul, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Very informative. And
thank you very much.
Winmore Wave. We'll give you the Winmore Wave. Thank you so much.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, that's the Winmore Wave.
I'll give it right back to you.
Okay,
thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your time, everyone.
And we'll have you in the future too. So thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. We're going to go to our Coconut Creek City Manager, Karen Brooks. Karen, I can't believe I saw you yesterday. That's an unexpected surprise. That was very nice. You want to have Becky join in with us, and we'll talk about what we did yesterday, along with Fred Stein. Fred Stein, our treasurer, was with us down at the county commissioners meeting. Karen, I'll give it to you now. It's yours. Uh-oh, did we lose you? You can't speak? Jakia.
I'm sorry.
Okay, good, she's on.
All right.
You have no displays or anything today, right? No exhibits?
It does. I do. I do have a PowerPoint, but we forwarded it over to Tia so that she can handle it, and I don't have anything to do with it. So
fingers crossed.
Yes, hopefully it will be good.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Winmorites, and thank you for having me today. As Bruce had indicated, we have some activity going on related to our landfill. So if we could start the PowerPoint presentation, I'll start off with that topic. That's me, and everybody knows who I am. Okay, so for a landfill update, I did want to give you an update on what is going on. As you may be aware, the landfill, that behemoth landfill right next door to us, is owned and operated by Waste Management. And they have recently submitted a request to change the land use on the northeast section of the landfill in order to be able to expand the landfill. So that, of course, is an issue for Coconut Creek. Before I kind of go into that a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about the solid waste working group, because they kind of go hand in hand. The solid waste working group is made up of representatives from several different cities in the county, with the purpose of seeking a regional system for solid waste disposal and recycling. What we know in Coconut Creek is we don't want the landfill to get any bigger. It was supposed to have closed many years ago, and it seems to keep growing and growing and growing. So it's of major environmental concern to us, and we fight it every step of the way. Broward County has a responsibility for providing for solid waste disposal for all of Broward County. And that group is looking for a regional system for all of the cities to be able to participate in. One of the initial findings that they have is that we don't have enough landfill space or disposal sites in Broward County for the future of Broward County. We know we don't want the landfill to get any bigger. And an alternative to that are waste to energy plants. In the spot where Waste Management is looking to change that land use, the land use request I was just talking about used to be a waste to energy incinerator. And it was closed down and dismantled by Waste Management, leaving the county with only one waste to energy plant down in the town of Davie. And the solid waste working group has found that we will probably need another waste to energy plant. So here we have a location, the land is owned by Waste Management, but it is the land use currently zoned for electrical generation. And it's very difficult to get that. And you need that land use designation in order to operate a waste to energy plant. So we don't want them to change that land use as we're trying to figure out where the county is going into the future for solid waste. So that leads me back to the LUPA request, which is the land use plan amendment request made by Waste Management, where they want to turn that waste to energy section of their landfill into further landfill. And they had the county commission meeting, or the county commission had a meeting yesterday with this item on, with that request on there. And it was attended by your very own Bruce Bandler and Fred Stein in conjunction with the city to request denial of that request. And the way the process works is that there is a local planning agency that evaluates these kinds of requests. And the item yesterday was to move that request over to that local planning agency for their evaluation. Well, we didn't even want it to go that far. We wanted to try to stop it at this point and just make it all go away. It was a small win. The county yesterday did vote to postpone that transmission of that request to the local planning agency until August. When the local planning agency receives the request, they will evaluate all of the conditions of the request, including compatibility with the surrounding areas and what they want to use it for and so on. Well, what they're asking for is not in compliance with Broward County's long-term goals for recycling and landfilling. We don't want the landfilling to get bigger, neither does the county. So we were kind of, I can say I was kind of surprised that the county wouldn't consider denying the request right at that point, considering that the solid waste working group is trying to work on a long-term regional solution. But we did get a win in a postponement of it. It is an important matter to all of us, and particularly Winmore being right next to the landfill, that we continue to monitor those activities. And we know that if and when it goes to the local planning agency, that we will, there will be many public hearings and opportunities for input. So at this point, the city's very appreciative of Winmore's support and Bruce and Fred attending yesterday, and know that as that process moves forward, we may need to rally, and we may need to rally a lot of our residents during public hearings in order to illustrate our desire for that land use plan amendment to not go through. So that is the update. Does anyone, I don't know, Bruce, if you want to add anything, or if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Karen, we got a little bit caught off guard because this was a late notice by Waste Management. But next time, when we get more past COVID, we'll have 100 people down there. We'll send 2 buses, cars. They won't know what hit them. But you're right. Over the years, they've reneged from their contracts and they want more. And they try to sneak it in by getting these different petitions from the county. And Mark Bogan deserves credit for shutting them down. And he looks out for us. Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Bogan was the one who initiated the request for at least deferring this item so that we can, understand and, make sure that our community understands our position and what we need to do next. This is the item that was on the commission agenda yesterday was really just a perfunctory item, but we were really trying to get in on the front end and nip it in the bud right there. And that's why it was really short notice. It really wasn't a public hearing, but we know that those will be coming down the pike. We were just trying to see if we could stop it early. So it's going to be a long haul. It's a major issue, and we're going to need Winmore support in the future. So
Karen, when we got prepared, I was going to wing it, but Fred Stein had like an 8-page report he was going to discuss. Again, we didn't have to speak because the motion got tabled. But Fred, do you have your notes in front of you? Fred Stein?
Yeah, no, I don't, Bruce. I don't have them in front of me.
I'd love to put you on the spot here. You want to discuss a few of the items you're going to discuss?
Well, it's just that one of the things is the landfill is so darn large. It's looking up some of the history, and
isn't it behind your screen right there? Isn't it like behind you?
No.
Oh, that's not the landfill?
Oh, no, that's
Mount Rainier, isn't it?
That's Mount Everest. Oh, yeah, Mount Rainier. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the landfill that's the tallest one in Florida, which is really pretty bad, and you can see it from here. And when I drove by there a couple of weeks ago, it was just as we all would expect. It just smells there. It's dirty. It's in a densely populated area, so there's a lot of reasons why it shouldn't grow. And
to make it simple for people, right now there's an incinerator sitting there that they're not using because of economics. It's really the best way to get rid of your garbage, but it's not economical. They want to knock it down, and there's 25 acres that they want to build up like the rest of the mountain.
It's cheaper
Karen, is that right?
than to do the waste to energy. And so I think that's why they want to do it.
See, Fred, we grew up in the hippie ages when environment counted, and we had things like Earth Day, and you recycled to save the environment and not just, for economic purposes. But I guess it's a new world, Fred. I know, yeah.
It is a new world, and it's a complex issue, and it's very difficult to get the public to really understand all the different pieces. And waste management is very good at complicating it even further. And so, and you're right, that landfill right there is the largest urban landfill country. And so we don't want it to get any bigger. And it is true that landfilling is cheaper than waste to energy, but landfilling doesn't take into consideration recycling and the environment and so on. So, you know, when Broward County has its goals, it's more than just disposing of garbage, but it's disposing of garbage in an environmentally friendly way and having great recycling options. In Broward County, all of the recycling facilities were bought out by Waste Management. So cities do not have options on where to take recycling. It's a monopoly in Broward County. So that, you know, a regional system involving all of the cities would be in the best interest of everybody in the county. And that's what that solid waste working group is trying to accomplish. So there's a lot going on. There's, like I said, it's a very complex issue. We try to break it down into step by step. And what we know now is that, you know, Waste Management does want to make that landfill bigger. They have put it out on the table. They want that land use amendment in order to expand the landfill. They have said that out directly. So we are in direct opposition of that, and we'll be continuing to work to not let that happen.
It should be about quality of life, not the quantity of how much money they have
That's right.
or looking for. Okay, well, Karen, you have to join us more often, especially with these issues up here. We got the turnpike coming, you know, and you give us good information. And I'd like to thank Becky. I don't know what Becky's doing on her screen right now, but
Becky is our city's representative on the solid waste working group. So she's very well versed in all of the issues. And if any of you have any questions, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk about it and assist in any way possible. So if we're past that, then the other thing I really wanted to talk about was the city's budget. We're in the middle of the city budget process. So next slide, please. So I kind of wanted to give you an update. We're currently working on the fiscal year the fiscal year 2022 budget. The city's fiscal year operates from October 1st through September 30th. We had a town meeting on April 7th to solicit input from the community on things they wanted to see in the budget. We are required to provide the city commission with a proposed budget by August 1st. So I would just like to say that if you have any issues or if you have anything that you would like to see the city consider in the budget for next year, to please contact my office and let us know, and the sooner the better, because we're right in the middle of it right now. So.
Karen, talking about if you see any grant that could come our way, you know, don't be shy.
Yeah, there's a lot of grants that are out there now, and some Recovery Act money, and so that's something we can absolutely keep in mind and forward on if we're able to see anything that might be of value. The commission workshop for the budget is scheduled for August 10th. It's an all-day workshop where staff presents the proposed budget to the commission. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Next slide, please. So while we're preparing the budget, the economic outlook for us is good in some ways and challenging in others. We all know right now the housing market's pretty hot and getting hotter. We saw last year an increase in values of 5.4%. This year, the taxable values of properties went up 4.79%. However, if you have the homestead, or your property is homesteaded, your increased value would go up no more than 1.4%. That's one of the advantages of being homesteaded. We're being cautiously optimistic about American. Now, they only value the housing market on January 1st of each year. So even though the housing market's getting pretty hot right now, it's just what it was last January. And then for the following year's budget, it will be coming up whatever this coming January 1st will be. So we're thinking maybe by next January with the hot market right now, those values will go up more than the 4.79 that they have this year. Economic development in our city is continuing. It was kind of slow during a COVID, but the Hillsborough Boulevard Corridor project is ongoing. There is pedestrian amenities that are being worked on, such as wider sidewalks on the north side of Hillsborough. They're under design. And there's permits for redevelopment of the old Deanie's Hideaway. If any of you remember that facility, it's going to be becoming a ballroom, which we were very excited for, because when we did our Parks and Rec master plan, our community had let us know that one of the amenities that they would like to see in the city is a place for events. And so getting a ballroom up there is a wonderful addition to our city. Also in the Main Street area, there is currently a developer that is looking to purchase the land that's in there. And for those of you who don't know, Main Street is defined by the 441 on the west, Lyons Road on the east, Sample Road on the south, and Wiles Road on the north. So it encompasses the promenade and on the one end on the east side, and the casino on the west side. And there's a lot of empty land in the middle. And so we have a workshop, hopefully with a submittal from the developer with the commission on August 26th at 5 o'clock. So if you're interested in what may be happening in the Main Street area, that would be a meeting to attend. We also have some development going up in Lyons Technology Park. FORTS, which stands for Fold Out Rigid Temporary Structures, is expanding their facility, and they're doing very well. We're very pleased that they're doing this expansion. So. Also, Wendy's, that's at 441 and Johnson Road, is now open. I've heard wonderful things about that particular Wendy's, that it's a really nice restaurant beyond the other regular Wendy's. So if you get a chance, check it out.
Who is the founder of Wendy's?
Dave Thomas.
And where's he from?
Oh, now you stumped me.
He's from Coconut.
This is easy.
He's from
Becky,
Columbus,
help her,
Ohio.
Becky.
He's
Who's
from
Becky?
Ohio, and he also got his GED or graduation certificate from Coconut Creek High School.
There you go. You got to know this stuff, Karen.
I knew half the answer. I wasn't old enough, so.
Oh, now you know. So if anyone says
He's a
David Thomas,
youngster.
he went to Coconut Creek School.
That's awesome. Hence why we have the Dave Thomas Center here in our city.
There you go, right?
Also, not up on the screen there, though, is the 7-Eleven on the corner of Banks Road and Coconut Creek Parkway is under construction. And the Murphy's Express, which is across the street from me there in Winmore on Coconut Creek Parkway, it will be going before the Planning and Zoning Board this summer. So kind of an update there. Next slide, please. Okay, so for us, we saw significant revenue losses in our current fiscal year to the tune of about $7 million. That included with half-cent sales tax, state shared revenues, impact fees. A lot of our revenues were really down this year, significantly so. What our revenue loss for next year will be is still unclear, although it is promising that things are looking up. The housing market's looking up. People are, there's lots of jobs available. And so hopefully we can get by without, too much regression there.
Karen, is that COVID related?
Yes, this is
Is
all
it not
COVID.
generating volume?
Right, this is all COVID related, exactly. So next slide, please. So a couple of things that I'll talk about the surtax, but first I'll just continue on with the American Rescue Plan Act. The city of Coconut Creek, the federal government had passed legislation to provide for revenue losses to local governments, as well as for other sources, including addressing public health issues and the pandemic consequences of that, and so on. So We've out of that over $7 million that we lost in revenues, we're getting the more than that back. And so that will help keep our financial situation strong. The additional money between the revenue loss and the amount that we're receiving, we're seeking to identify community projects that we could utilize that funding for. Staff will be making recommendations to the city commission on areas in order to be able to spend that money. One of our approaches, the approach that we're taking though is all local governments and the state are getting Recovery Act money. So we don't want to duplicate programs that are offered by other agencies. For example, if there's rental assistance and the county has a rental assistance program going on, we would rather send our residents to Broward County and get rental assistance there and utilize the $1 million, which will go very quickly for things that are very specific to Coconut Creek. So we're still evaluating eligible uses for that money, and we'll be planning to make recommendations to the commission around the budget time. So that certainly helps us, as I said, maintain fiscally strong. In addition, we have the Broward County Transportation Surtax, where Broward County has awarded us $3.8 million in funding in our current year to cover what we have is a comprehensive streets program in order to repave all of our city streets in the city, and it's broken down into several phases. And so the surtax money is actually going to cover phase 2 of our comprehensive plan. So it keeps us all working, keeps the economy generating, which is all good, and it's going to ultimately end up fixing our streets. We were also awarded funding to ensure all of our bus pads are ADA accessible, and as well as funding for a multi-use pathway on Sample Road from Lyons to the Turnpike. And that's important to us because we're trying to make connections to Tradewinds Park, which is a beautiful amenity that we happen to have in the city of Coconut Creek that is a county park. And we would love to pull in that park as part of our Parks and Recreation public realm and have our community have great access to that. So the multi-purpose path on Sample Road furthers that endeavor. So we've got money coming in, we've got projects for that, and hopefully we'll continue on and stay strong. So next slide. As I mentioned, the city remains financially solid. We have enough reserves for emergencies. Hopefully there will be none. No hurricanes, right? Absolutely no hurricanes this year. And you know, as we prepare the budget, and we do every year, we are always seeking. We have limited resources for, you know, competing items, and, you know, it's up to the commission to make sure we allocate those resources in the most efficient and cost-effective way. So as staff prepares the budget, we're always looking for ways to optimize resources, including looking for grants and looking for funding through other means. We've got several pokers in the fire for funding. We're seeking $2.7 million in appropriations through Representative Ted Deutsch's office. So far, it's looking good. We're keeping our fingers crossed, but you know, we're constantly looking for those kinds of things to help defray the cost to the taxpayer here in Coconut Creek. I think at the last meeting, Deputy City Manager Sheila Rose talked about the strategic planning and the visioning process that we just recently went through. And that was ending up being a wonderful document that really illustrates what the high priorities are for our community, and it helps us figure out where to allocate our limited resources in the budget. So we're using that for the development of the FY22 budget, and we'll be turning that into that strategic plan into a living document and getting feedback every single year to help us identify what the priorities are. I think so. Just where we're at with the budget, it's like I said, we're still in the middle of things, but I just kind of want to give you just a peek into the future and what we know and what we're thinking. What we know is that there's going to be a 2.5% increase in water rates effective April 1st. That's already been pre-authorized, and that is every single year. It is slated. It's kind of like a CPI increase. The city has rescinded that increase for the last 3 years. Because we do an analysis every year to see whether we actually really need those extra funds or not. And if we don't, then we rescind those increases. So the last 3 years, we've not had any increase to our water and sewer rates, but we do anticipate that this year we will need to do that. We are expecting, staff is expecting the tax rate to be the same or maybe even a little less. But what we have to submit a tax rate to the property appraiser's office that will be published on your tax notice that you receive in August. Whatever rate is on there, we cannot go above that rate. So we're gonna, I'm going to be asking for consensus from the city commission to submit the current tax rate that we have, and we know that we will not be going above that. And if we can work to lower that rate some, that would be a great goal. There is a fire fee, and as you know, we are establishing our own fire department. And we believe one of the decision factors in making that decision is we believe that we can provide fire service more economically than we could through our contract with the city of Margate. However, we have 2 stations in our city, one in the north end and one in the south end, and we need one in the central area of the city. And whether we stayed with Margate or we went on our own, we still have to fund that central station. So we actually postponed the implementation of that station because Margate wanted to charge us too much what we felt was too much to implement that. So we just actually postponed it. But we are planning to open that station up October 1st when we go live with our own station, our own department on October 1st as well. So please expect a fire rate increase. Our current rates are under $200, both for multifamily and single family, whereas Margate's rates are $300 a year, and they're proposing to increase it to $350 a year. So I can assure you that whatever rate increase we have to fire fees will be nowhere near that $300 mark, or I don't even anticipate anywhere even near the $250 mark, but there will be an increase in order for us to have full coverage and better response times for service in our city. Okay. Any questions? Any questions on that? Okay. All right.
Very informative. Thank you. Henry, get ready, Henry. Henry, come on. Henry. He's not too quick. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I just wanted to put up one more thing, though. I just have upcoming events, just a couple of upcoming events, and I'll do it really, really quickly.
Okay, we got another guest, and we got like 6 minutes.
Okay, so we have.
We're overtime right now.
Okay, well, I'll say this: we have a Culture Around the World series coming up. We have a music series at Promenade coming up. We have. We will be open on Monday, 4th of July. City Hall will be closed, but Parks and Rec will be open. And we have some movies in the parks coming up. So check our website for those events if you're interested. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
We asked a special guest to come on today, DJ King Arthur. Hi, King. It's nice to say hi, King. Hey. King, do you want to tell everybody why we asked the King to come on today?
Well, good afternoon. we did want to include some entertainment in this segment, considering we do have our 4th of July event coming up, and King Arthur is providing the music for the ceremony, which will be Sunday, July 4th, between 12 and 3 in the West Wing. We'll send out details so you can register for the event online. So just stay tuned. But thank you for joining us. It's good to see you. It's been quite a while.
Very welcome. You're very welcome. It's good to see you also. Good to see you also.
King, you put on a good show all the time. I always, when I go to a Winmore event, if they say King Arthur's there, I'm there.
That's good to know. I would hate you would turn around if you heard that. So that's good to know. Fantastic.
Did you see our list, or do you have a list of all the top 5 songs you played?
I've seen a few of the lists, and I'm taking them all down into consideration. I have a list of my own that I created because Winmore is very diverse, I found. You know, like a lot of different types of music, a little Latin, you know, some oldies, and particularly a lot of dance music, a lot of line dancing, which I enjoy. You know, I like to play it. I don't like to dance it so much, but I'm more than happy to play it. And I'm looking forward to being there on the 4th of July there at Winmore this year. I miss coming around to the West Wing and to the pool during the COVID times, just trying to stay safe, you know, especially during the initial portion of COVID. So
I remember you did the 2019 July 4th show.
I sure did.
Right, and we didn't have one last year, so yeah, this is actually a repeat, 2 years ago.
So I'm happy to grace the West Wing once again. Now, I understand I'm seeing a lot of lists, you know, here, and I'm liking the songs I see. There's one point, and I came up with a list myself. I don't know if you can particularly call it a listening list, because at Winmore, we dance. We don't really listen a lot. We like to dance at Winmore.
I like to listen.
Yeah, well, I'll give it a shot for, I'll just give you 5 of what I would consider listening music, from 5 to 1.
Okay.
So I would say The Wanderer by Dion is number 5.
Oh, I forgot that one. Good one.
My Girl by The Temptations.
Oh, you're killing us. Right. Great stuff.
4, The Wonder of You by Elvis.
Yes.
I would say is number 3. Number 2, you can take it or leave it, I Just Called to Say I Love You by Stevie Wonder.
Was on my list.
And I think about the number 1 listening, or what you would consider listening music for this particular list, I would say Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers.
Wow, you got a strong list there.
You know, I try. You know, I've been DJing since 1979, so it's been quite a while, a lot of music. Okay. Now for dancing, it's a whole different animal. Number 5 on my dance list is Cake by the Ocean by DNC. Number 4, which, like I say, we have a lot of transition, a lot of diversity. A waltz by Anne Murray would be Could I Have This Dance? That's always requested when somebody wants to do a waltz. Number 3, we always do a lot of line dances, so I would say the Cupid Shuffle by Cupid. Then we have a little Latin flavor. I would say the second one on my list would be Vivir Mi Vida by Mark Anthony, which is a nice salsa. And number 1 on my list, I think I get requested this song the most of all, and I think I play it at every gig, would be Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke.
Wow.
Everybody loves Blurred Lines. So, that would be my list.
Okay, here's King. From what I've been hearing for the last few years, we're going to play it right now. We're going to end the show with this. It's Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. They don't like to do the hand thing. So we thank you for coming. We'll see you on the 4th.
You're very welcome.
Okay, and everybody have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
guys
Shout
stay
out to
safe.
Nicole Watt. Good to see you on the show. And
Thank you for having me.
okay, see you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Where it began, I can't begin to know it, but then I know it's growing strong. Wasn't the spring by the strings? Spring became the summer. Would have believed you'd come along? Hands, touching hands, reaching out, dear Lord, touching me, touching you, sweet Caroline. Good time never seemed so good. And it don't seem so lonely. We fill it up with only two. And when I hurt, it runs off my shoulders. How can I hurt when holding you? Touching warm, reaching out, honey, touching me, touching you, sweet Caroline. Good time never seemed so good. I've been inclined to believe there never was. No, no, no. Yeah, sweet Caroline. Good time never seemed so good.
Everybody stay dry. We'll see you next week. Good night.